Was it God who helped you pass your exams or get the job? If yes, why did you have to prepare hard or study hard? If no, why did people who didn't prepare or study fail? Hi there, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if this is not the first episode of Culture Wars that you are seeing. Today's war is between intellect and Christianity. For some, that may be intellect and religion, because the chain of thoughts may apply even if you're not Christian. But as somebody who has faith in a religion or spiritual practice of any kind. And unlike the previous episodes of Culture Wars, this one is going to be between me and you. I've gathered a dilemma. Backstory, by the way, I shared two videos. One was on grief. I had lost my mom and it broke me down and it made me, for a while, stumble with my faith. I'm Christian, just for the avoidance of doubt. But I had thought to myself, with things like writing an exam or getting a job, there are principles that people who are not Christians can follow that will still make them succeed. But with things like raising the dead or preventing somebody from going into the other world, it's almost nothing I can do. My faith, at least up until that moment when I started to struggle, was that there's only one person who can do something. And when he didn't, I started to wonder, what is going on? And then the second video was on, can I trust God again? It was an outcome of the first, because now that the grief had put me through the questions that I had, it was, it was a tussle to come back into believing. And when my friends watched the videos, and some other people who are not my friends, who have now become a part of my community, shout out to you guys who watch, when they saw it, I got a lot of private messages. Apparently, many people struggle with whether or not where the results come from is intellect or faith. So I asked somebody to kindly send me some questions that you and I, and that's why there's no guest on the show today, are going to be discussing or sharing our opinions on. Part of it was what you saw at the intro. So I will read them out. If you consider yourself Christian and an intellectual, this is for you. Dilemma 1. I've worked hard, real hard, sacrificed my comfort, planned very carefully, strategized and evaluated to where I currently am in life. And I'm still told that it's not by my doing, but the will of God. So if everything depends solely on the divine mercy of God, where does that leave my intellect, choices I've made, and strategy? Are they rendered irrelevant, or are they just the medium through which I must gain the mercy? What do you guys think? Please share with me in the comment section. Dilemma 2, closely related. Do my success and growth make me proud of myself, or should it be gratitude towards God? And if it's gratitude to God, then do my failures humble me or make me doubt God's work? Thirdly, if God's unpredictable mercy has shaped me, should I just be open to accepting more mystery and watch how things unfold in my life in the future without using my intellect? The last one, I think, let's leave till we've done the first three and then we can come back to it, because it sort of is conclusive, and so we're better off dealing with it at the end, I think. Personally, and this is my humble take, I'm not an authority, I'm just a believer who is given to daily improvement, both intellectually and spiritually. And so this is not, don't take my word for it if you're not able to, but also take it from the perspective of somebody who has practiced, has made efforts to remain in faith her whole life, and has gone through situations like those that I shared at the beginning that really caused her to question things. So on dilemma 1, I think that success, many times, depending on what you define success as, if it's the material success or monetary success or all these other things that the world has taught us that success refers to, anyone can get those, whether you are Christian or not. And that's the reason I don't think that strategy and planning and gathering education and growing in your art are a waste. I think that those are worthy of credit. However, the place of God's mercy and God's help is, we know those areas where it's too much of a coincidence, for example, or too much of, or you're just stranded intellectually and your brain just couldn't raw things to happen, and you had to depend on something bigger than you. One of the stories I shared in the Can I Trust God Again videos was I got on the bus one time. It should be simple. If I'm going to a destination and I've opened it on the map and there are people I can speak to, it should be simple. I get on the bus, I get off where I'm supposed to get off, and I can walk to the destination. But I had newly come to the city of Manchester at the time, and I got on a bus that felt like the correct bus, even though I didn't really know the way. I had just done the route maybe once or twice, and I didn't know enough to know where I was going. And I thought that as you called in Lagos, I was going to be able to ask someone, but the locals were the ones on the bus. Nobody knew where I was going, and I was just by myself. Long story short, I pushed the button when I got to a point where I was going to break down into tears, and I got off the bus only to realize that the place looked familiar. But obviously I was still in doubt. I thought that couldn't be my bus stop because I didn't even know where I was going, and there's no way I pushed the button and it just happened to be my bus stop. But I did. I got off after I had said a prayer at the point of entry and realizing, girl, you're about to be lost. I got off and I saw a barber shop that again looked familiar. I walked up to him and I asked for data. He helped me. I put my house destination on the map and it was just some minutes away from where I was standing. Obviously, I could have gotten to the destination intellectually. If you are in the UK, it's impossible to get around when you are new without internet because you're going to need your map every single time. So the intellectual thing to have done would have been to ensure that I had data on my phone, but I didn't have data on my phone and I still got home. It was too much of a coincidence, especially considering that I had tried all the other intellectual things I could have done. For example, on the bus, I had tried to speak to someone, see if anyone could put on their hotspot for me or just help me put my address on the map so that I could get home, but that didn't happen. I had tried to ask if they knew where I was going, but the UK is a bit of a mind your business terrain. People don't put their noses into stuff that is not their concern. It's not that they're not bothered about whether you're okay or not. They just really, really respect boundaries, and that could have played into why nobody knew where I was going. Perhaps they had no business knowing. So I think those sort of areas that we know for sure that intellect could have helped but didn't come through, and something bigger than us orchestrated things to happen or can orchestrate things to happen, that's where I think we have an edge as Christians. But let me know what you think in the comment section.
If you're still watching at this point but are not subscribed, can I ask why? It's free, you know. It's free. It's free. Hit the like button as well. I'm sorry to interrupt your video. Bye.
Dilemma 2. Do my successes and growth make me proud of myself, or should it be gratitude towards God? And if it's gratitude towards God, do my failures humble me or make me doubt God's work? I think that both can exist and exist fully without any one being untrue. First of all, gratitude towards God is always a must for me. Again, for the same reason as the first. I'm not able to help myself at all. I've come to conclude. I acknowledge intellect, otherwise there's no reason to go to school, there's no reason to be educated, there's no reason to, improve on oneself. We see that we're in the world where intellect is how you get around some of these things that you just have to have. For example, making enough money to look after yourself at least. You have to have something going on in your head so that you can think, sit. But outside of that, God's mercy, as was the case in the story that I shared. And so gratitude to God for that reason is a must all the time. But in addition, you can be proud of yourself for putting in the work. You can be happy with yourself that you didn't just let situation dictate what was going to happen to you or what was going to be your faith. After all, we're led by God's Spirit. Scripture says that we're led by God's Spirit when we're given to the things of God. Being led doesn't mean that there's going to be some shiberba happening. It just means that as we give ourselves to spiritual things, our sense of direction is sharpened spiritually, although that will come into play as though it was just your intuition. The sense of what course to study, for example, or what areas of yourself to improve upon. Even though you may need secular materials to improve on those areas, the decision out of so many choices could be where the power lies. And again, that's beyond our control, because what if you make the decision and it wasn't what you needed? So that's why I think gratitude to God is a must at all times. But you can also be proud of yourself or happy with yourself for putting in the work, so that you even encourage yourself to do it again next time. Dilemma 3, thirdly, if God's unpredictable mercy has shaped me, should I just be open to accepting more mystery and watch how things unfold in my life in the future without using my intellect? We have sort of addressed this now, I think. 3 things. Some things are beyond our control. Intellect will fail us. And those are the areas where God's mercy will come in. That sort of addresses this. It just means that maybe we have to be open to God's leading at all times. And when we get the leading to do something, we better put in the work and do that thing. And that's why I was saying earlier that I believe that both truths can exist at the same time. Gratitude to God, surrender to God, and your intellect coming into play when you're carrying out that assignment that you have decided based on God's leading. And the last of them, which I was saying that we were probably better off considering at the end, it says, there are situations I have tried even harder and still failed, and other times succeeded effortlessly and sensed God's hand at work, indicating it was mercy, not merely my effort. That kind of caters to the dilemma as a whole. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you agree with me, or is it just intellect that we need, do you think, or do we need spirituality? Culture Wars, episode 3. This part of the video, I may have to seek permission from the person who raised the questions, because she did so with me privately, and I didn't tell her that it was going to be, in fact, I've just decided on the spot while filming that it was probably related to the subject that we're talking about, and that's why I'm bringing it up. If she permits, I will share with us. Otherwise, we're going to scrap it out. I've just written out in my notes. She says, how were you able to film the videos about losing your mom, especially the faith part of why me, why not you? Your faith must be tested. If things don't happen, you'll probably never have the chance to trust God. And I get it, but I also don't get it. How did you get to that point? Backstory to that, after I did the video on grief, I did the Can I Trust God, where I was saying the question of why me, which is what we always ask when we're at that point where we're struggling with our faith, is a question of pride in a way, because why not you? I was sharing that it insinuates that you think there are people who may be deserving, but certainly not you, probably because of the things that you've given, the things that you've done, sacrifice that you've pulled off. But chances are that there are people who have pulled off stronger sacrifices and still gone through the same set of things, or even worse. So my take is that we all get a fair share of tribulations and trials in life, regardless of how committed you are to a cause, how much effort you put in. We all get a taste. And it's also something that I picked up from 2 books. One was Crushing by Bishop T.D. Jakes. I highly recommend. And the other, Ego is Your Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That just causes you to view yourself as everyone else and not place yourself above other people. Obviously, not saying to fail in the area of appreciating the God-given talents that you have or the hard work that you put in, but to overall appreciate everyone else as you would yourself. So it was hard to film that. It came from tears, real struggle. If you've ever been through grief, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm sure that if you had faith in God and it still happened, if you prayed a lot, you know exactly, even more, what I'm talking about. Perspective that those books brought me just got me into realizing that it was self-absorbing to ask why me. Valid questions, because I thought to myself, I've given to the faith, I've done this, I've done that, so I shouldn't have to go through this. Valid question. But on the other side, it's just what life is about. Scriptures acknowledge that life is that way. We are going to be tested. And again, even if you find the why, it does not change the what. For example, if I magically found the why my mom had to pass, it still wouldn't change the what, which was that my mom had passed. So at the end of the day, it's just a question that cripples us even further and buries us in sorrow that we can triumph over. And I think that the why me question could be a tool in the hands of the devil to further leave us there, because the more you ponder upon anything, the more into it you get, I've come to realize. So when we keep our minds stayed on subjects that don't even help, we stay more in the category of people who are not being helped. Perhaps we can deal with why later, or perhaps the story would unfold and we'll eventually see the why. But for the now, can we live in peace and allow for a more stable mind, the type that is able to produce the things that we truly, truly want? So that is my humble take. And then we've got the part of your faith must be tested. It was also something I said in that video. If things don't happen, you'll probably never have the chance to trust God. And I get it, but I also don't get it. How did you get to that point? Again, it was hard. The event happened in 2022, and I only was able to talk about it in 2025. And even at that time, we're still in 2025, obviously, but even then, I realized that grief is something that you go through, you learn how to cope with. It's not something that gets away, because there's no healing. You never get the person back. And that's why anything surrounding grief or permanent loss or emotional problems that cannot be corrected or reversed, that's why I think those sort of things will always be hard. But on your faith has to be tested. If you don't get a chance to go through things like this, how do you trust God? My humble take was and still is that it's easy to trust God or to trust anyone when everything is smooth. But trust is only tested, obedience is only tested at those times when it's difficult. Otherwise, anybody can trust and obey. And so that's what I meant by, if your faith does not get tested, how would you get a chance to trust God? It's not to say that we don't trust God before our faith is tested. It's just to imply that the real test of trust and obedience is that season where it is hard. Can you trust God when He doesn't answer? Can you trust God to know what He's doing when things are not working in your favor? Can you trust God when He's not doing for you the things that you've always had easy? And that's just where that came from. And the part of how did you get to that point? I'm not at that point. I don't think anyone will ever be at that point. I think it's a life that we learn to live. As with grief, anything else that involves intellect, faith, emotions, we just learn how to be. We learn how to process. We learn how to wrap around. We learn so that we are better people. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being a guest on the show. Please share your comments. It really, really matters to me, especially in an episode like this where we have decided that we're going to be partners. Do subscribe, leave a like, because if you don't, the platform thinks that the video was shitty, not good at all, and it will go to waste and not get to people who may need to hear the conversation or be a part of it or who may like it. Thank you again. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.